So hi everybody, I'm Barbara, and I'm going to be reading from my newest book, Diwata. Diwata is a Tagalog word, and it is a word that's used to describe the spirits that live in nature. So the spirit of the tree, the spirit of the water, spirit of the wind, I suppose, and basically as human beings we need to know how to regard them respectfully, otherwise you can, fall ill, or your crops will die or something like that. So that's one way of ensuring that we act right, is to have these beings that are, there to punish us if we don't. So there's that. But Diwata, I looked it up in my very, very big Tagalog dictionary and found it also meant muse. And so I was really interested in how those two things work together. How are we inspired by these things in nature that, that could cause us great harm? A couple other things, just that a lot of these poems are from stories that the elders in my family have been telling for many years. A lot of really crazy storytellers in our family, and the longer we would sit at tables with, all kinds of just, I don't know, stuff at the center and lots of beer and lots of third world gin, the crazier the stories would get. So there's that as well. And then the final thing that I should say about the work before I just jump right into it is that one thing that I've consistently throughout all of my work been interested in is girls and women telling their own stories. So that said, I'm just going to go ahead and just jump in. Start with a short piece that I actually stole from Eduardo Galeano, The Bamboo's Insomnia. I can't sleep. There's a poet stuck in the between the love lines of my palms. And I would tell her to get out if I could, but there's a poet stuck inside the cradle of my bones and tendons. Polyglot incantation. Siya ay nakatayo sa balikat ng bundok. She stands upon the mountain shoulders. Langit ay kulay ng ginto at dugo. Skies the color of gold and blood. Sumisigaw siya, mira el sol. See how the sun weeps. Tingnan mo, umiyak ang araw. See how this mountain slope burns. Nag-aapoy siya rin. Sky's the color of black pearls. Yan lagi ang sa aking panag-inip. This have I prophesied. Ang mukha ng araw ay umiiyak. And what are these glyphs? Wikang matematika. Some human machinery. Simbolo encantada o gayuma. Maker of souls and tongues. Anong pisi o balat ng ahas? What twine or serpent skin binds? Silangan at kanluran. Pearl of the Orient, este punto del embarco, fractured archipelago, ang mga anak mo ay nakakalat. Your children have scattered, cielo el color de perlas negras. Do not forget that they have names. May sariling pangalan ang aming diwata. And one of the characters that kind of insists on making his presence known every once in a while in this book is the lawin, and that is he's a predatory bird and could also be a spirit. A parable. The mermaid loosed her tongue against another, a twittering songbird in a fragrant tree. The mermaid loosed her tongue as if she were extending claws to swipe, as if craving human blood. In her sleep, a vision, a tangle of thorns encircling the songbird, doves' rank, rotted plumage, maggot-infested eagles, wings and beaks clipped, lawin's crusty, milky eyes, heron's open sores overcome with infection. Diwata came to the mermaid, stroked her thick night-black hair. Do not fear, for one day the songbird will trill in a palace of pearls and summer seashells. And the mermaid breathed a sigh, lulled to sleep by the song of the ocean breeze. I'm still, I was just telling a couple of people earlier, I'm still kind of finding my way around this book. I've had this in manuscript form for many years, so I've had all these pages that I would just be kind of ripping out and unclipping and folding up and reordering them, and now that they're all bound in this thing, I'm feeling a little bit limited by it, so I'm still learning how to read from it. The book's been out for a month, and, you know, I think I'll get better at it, but in the meantime, you know, I don't know, I'll figure it out. Okay, and this is Dragonflies. Behind the laughing house, the path is a sudden steep slide to the river bank, and there are no stones along the path. Young ladies don't go to the river unchaperoned. Once a young lady slid down the steep path and into the water. When she returned, her hair was a nest of mud and blue baby dragonflies. She tittered constantly and touched her puckered lips with the tips of her wet fingers. She couldn't speak otherwise, fevered and worrying as she was. She stroked her throat and flicked her hair. She pulled open her thin blouse and exposed her tiny breasts to the village boys. The handsome man inside the laughing house stepped outside his door to see the commotion. Old mothers clucked, she shouldn't have been standing so close, as young boys learned to kick the dirt and crow. The man shook his head at them all. He covered this young lady's body with his white coat and placed a cool stethoscope against her burning skin and found inside her heart the thrumming of the river. There's a mermaid in the river behind the laughing house. She's the kind of mermaid who grabs at the ankles of young fishermen. The older one's legs are too sturdy. She pulls the youngsters into the cool water. She slides her body against theirs. They too surface crowned with blue baby dragonflies and the river rushing inside their hearts. Old mothers clutch their rosary beads. The river didn't used to be this close to the laughing house. One day, the river started to stretch itself wider and wider. The house started to throw stones and cough up so much dust. Tickled by its own dust, it giggled and it shook. The goats knocked over trees with their hooves and the flat tops of their heads. They fed upon the roots until the trees all withered and the soil gave way underfoot. Even the dragonflies ate grass blades one by one. The river, the house, the goats, the dragonflies, they did these things much to the old mother's dismay, because the mermaid wanted to see the face of the godless, handsome man who lived inside the laughing house. And that's kind of my made-up version of why the river behind my grandfather's house would always move. I felt like every time I went back to see him up in the country, the river would be right behind his house, and then the next time I'd come back, it would be yards and yards away. And nobody could really tell me why. They'd always tell me, but the river's always been there. And I'm like, here or there? What do you mean it's been there? And nobody could ever tell me, so I made up my own story, and it was only very recently that my uncle told me something scientific that made sense, but, you know, by then the story had already been written, so I said, well, this is my story, I'm sticking to it.